writing performant code, specifically for your world. Those motion graphics toolkits, Mulgrits, and all those other cool, scalable systems you're creating.
And we're drawing today from some really good discussions on like the nuts and bolts of efficient expressions, but also the bigger picture strategy for templating.
Okay, so why obsess over speed and efficiency? Really focus here. Well, think about the end user, right? You're not just coding for yourself. Your stuff gets used by all sorts of people. And honestly, their patience for lag or slow renders might be a bit less than ours.
That's such a crucial point. User expectations are way up there now, partly because of platforms like Canva, Adobe Express. They're just so slick.
Super responsive.
Exactly. So your tools, your templates, they need the visual power, the customization, sure, but they have to feel just as quick and fluid. It's table stakes now.
Okay, challenge accepted. Let's get into it. When we say performant code for After Effects expressions, what's the fundamental goal?
At its heart, it's really about one thing: calculation speed. How fast can the code figure things out?
Right.
We want expressions that execute their sums, their logic, whatever, as quickly as possible.
So how do we actually get that speed? The sources talk about optimizing code structure first. What are the trade-offs there?
Yeah, this one's interesting. It's like, do you put all your code eggs in one basket, one expression property, or spread them out?
Oh, yeah?
The sources suggest, for raw speed, sometimes jamming it all into one expression can be faster. Less context switching for After Effects, like doesn't have to jump around as much.
Keeping all the tools close by.
Yeah.
Makes sense for pure speed.
Yeah.
But what about organizing complex things? Reusability. We often break things down, right?
Totally. That's the practical side. Consolidation might be faster, but the sources know that in real projects, you've got bits of logic you need in multiple places.
So then what? Copy paste.
Well, that's the choice, isn't it? You can duplicate that code block in every property where it's needed, or you make it once, maybe on a null or a controller layer, and have everything else point to it, reference it.
And the downside of referencing, if it's cleaner.
Maintainability, mainly. If you reference one central piece of code and you need to update it or fix a bug, you fix it once, done.
Nice.
But if you duplicated it everywhere for that potential tiny speed boost, now you got to hunt down every single copy and change it.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds painful.
So consolidation might be fractionally faster computationally, but referencing is often way easier to manage, especially on big projects that evolve. You have to weigh the speed game against the headache of updates. It's a judgment call.
Gotcha. Performance versus maintainability. A classic developer dilemma. Okay, moving on. Conditional logic. The good old if-else. How do we make those faster?
This is where thinking ahead helps a lot when you use if-else statements. The order you check your conditions matters. The basic idea is check the most likely condition first, the one that happens most often. Because if that first condition is true, the code does its thing and just exits the whole if-else block right there. It doesn't even bother looking at the other else, if or else parts. Faster path for the common case.
Sort of like express checkout for the most frequent customers.
Exactly. And building on that, if there's some fundamental thing that has to be true for any of the later calculations in that block to even make sense, check that first, right at the top.
A master switch, kind of.
Yeah, if a layer needs to be visible for anything else to matter, check if layer.opacity 0 right away. If it's not visible, boom, skip all the complex calculations inside that conditional. Why waste the processing power?
Stop the work before it even starts if the main condition isn't met. Seems smart.
It really is. And you have to ask yourself, like the sources suggest, is the tiny time it takes to do that first check worth the potential big time saving of skipping everything else? Almost always, the answer is yes.
Okay, smart ordering, check prerequisites early, makes sense for if-else. What about managing data inside expressions, variables? Any speed tips there?
Oh, definitely. The advice here is declare variables and the things they point to only when you actually need them in the logic.
Not all at the start. I see that sometimes.
Yeah, it's a habit some folks have, declare everything up front. But if your code goes down different paths based on conditions, you might only use, say, 3 out of the 10 variables you declared.
And declaring the unused ones takes time, effort.
It's a tiny bit of overhead for each one, but it can add up, especially if it's happening on every frame. It's just inefficient. Be lean. Declare it when you need it.
Declare just in time.
And the flip side is, if you're using the same thing over and over, like referencing this comp.layer, declare that as a variable the first time you use it. Like my slider, this comp.layer, controller,
Yeah.
Then just use my slider everywhere else in that expression.
Why is that faster?
Because After Effects only has to do the full lookup, find the layer, find the effect, find the slider once. After that, it just grabs the value from the variable you stored much quicker than doing the full lookup repeatedly. Saves real computation time, especially in loops or complex stuff.
Cache the reference. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, this one sounds interesting. Posterized time. What's the deal with that? Performance magic.
It can be, but you have to be really careful. Posterize time 0, you put it right at the very start of your expression, line 1.
Okay.
It tells After Effects, calculate this entire expression only once, right at the beginning on frame 0, and then just hold that value forever.
Whoa. Only once, not every frame.
Exactly. So think about the performance win. Expressions usually calculate every single frame. If you have something complex, that's a lot of work. But if the property value doesn't actually need to change...
Like a layer's starting position. Or its anchor point, maybe.
Perfect examples. Things that are set once and then stay put. For those, Posterize time 0 is amazing. Huge performance boost because it skips all the per frame recalculations.
Sounds great. What's the catch? There's always a catch.
The catch is huge. You absolutely cannot use it on properties that need to animate or change over time, obviously.
Right.
And, crucially, you also can't use it if that expression relies on other properties that are animating, because your expression calculates once at frame 0 and then never looks again. It's frozen in time to any later changes.
Okay, so strictly for static properties that don't depend on anything dynamic. Very specific use case. What if that's too extreme, but we still want some optimization?
Yeah, if posterized time is too blunt an instrument, the sources mention value at time. That lets you grab a property's value at a specific time you choose rather than just frame 0. You could use it to maybe sample a value less frequently than every frame or only within a certain time range. It's more flexible if the calculate only once ever approach doesn't fit.
Good to have options. Okay, shifting gears towards the final product. Lean deliverables. What's that about for performance?
This is about cleaning up before you ship. During development, we use all sorts of helper things, right? Nulls for rigging, maybe try catch blocks to catch errors while we're building.
Sure, standard practice.
All that stuff adds overhead. It takes processing time.
Stuff the end user doesn't actually need.
Precisely.
Yep.
So the idea of a lean deliverable is strip all that development scaffolding away. Remove the test nulls, the try-catch blocks maybe, if you're confident. Simplify any code that was just there for reproducibility during testing. Deliver only the essential optimized code needed for the final effect.
Like taking the scaffolding off a building once it's finished. Don't ship your debugging tools. Last tip from the sources. Modern JavaScript functions. How does that impact speed?
It's often the case that newer JavaScript features, the ones added in more recent versions that After Effects supports, are just better optimized under the hood.
The engine runs them faster.
Often, yeah. Plus, they sometimes let you do the same thing with less code, which can be easier to read and sometimes inherently faster, too. Things like arrow functions, newer array methods, they're often designed for efficiency.
So, keeping up with JavaScript updates supported by AE can actually pay off in performance.
Definitely worth looking into. It's not just about new syntax, it can be about better speed, too.
Great tip. Okay, let's try and wrap our heads around the main takeaways then.
Sure. So, number 1, speed. Focus on making those calculations run fast.
Right, and structure matters, that trade-off between putting code all in one place versus referencing, thinking about maintenance.
Then optimizing conditional logic, your if-else statements. Order matters, checking prerequisites early help.
And variables, declare them only when needed, but definitely cache references you use a lot.
Posterize time 0 for static stuff, but use it carefully. And value at time as an option.
Don't forget lean deliverables, strip out the development extras before shipping.
And finally, yeah, embrace modern JavaScript features where it makes sense. They're often faster.
And pulling this all together, mastering these techniques really helps you build those powerful, scalable, user-friendly tools and templates. It's how you compete, how you deliver that smooth experience people expect now, like Canva or Adobe Express.
Exactly. Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for listeners to ponder. As these systems get more and more complex, what else, beyond just optimizing the code line by line, could really push performance and user experience forward?